Okay, folks, I'm going to show you how to do the classic translucent hood shot. Normally this is done on a car, but I have more guitars than cars and they're far easier to photograph indoors, so I'm going to use them. The concept is exactly the same. So here I have what is my final result, and that is the guitar inside the case with the case cover um, partially exposing the guitar underneath it. So it's a cool kind of effect, and as you can see, the any logo or graphics on the cover uh, still remain intact, even though you can see through them. So like I said, it's a really neat kind of effect. So I'm starting with these two images. I have one of the guitar with the case cover open, and one with it closed. These were shot on a tripod in manual exposure mode so that the light between the two shots is consistent. I used a remote trigger, so I did not risk moving the camera, and the camera focus was set to manual, so again there was no chance of anything changing. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click Edit in, and then I'm going to open these as layers in Photoshop. The key is to make sure that you get these into Photoshop as layers, one on top of the other. If in fact you do not have Photoshop, okay, then Photoshop Elements will work. Any version of Photoshop will work. The idea, though, is you want to have these open as a single document in Photoshop in layers. Now, as you can see here, Photoshop opened them with the open case image as the top layer, and then the closed case image as the bottom layer. That's not the way I want to work. I actually want to drill down through the case cover, so I simply click this layer, drag it above the other one, and I've reversed the layers. It's easy peasy. Okay, so now all I need to do is to now drill down through this case cover, and again I'm going to use layer masks to do that. All right, so to do that, I can go into layer, and then I'm going to do a new layer mask. All right, and what I want to do here is I want to hide everything underneath it. All right, so I'll simply open that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to hide it. I actually want to reveal it. So this is good. So if you make a mistake like I just did, all right, what you now have is a black layer mask. Black, okay, will expose anything that's underneath it in the mask. White will invert it. Okay, so if I have an all black mask and I want to change it to white, I simply hit Command-I on a Mac or Control-I on a PC, and it just inverts the layer mask. And it's that simple. Okay, now what I'm going to use is the paintbrush tool. All right, and with the paintbrush, I'm simply going to paint away at the layer mask and expose what's underneath it. Fairly simple. Now, a couple things I want to make sure of. With my brush, I'm going to use a fairly liberal sized brush shape. I don't want to go too big. The numbers here really only matter. They matter more when you're looking at pixel sizes, but I'm looking relative to what I'm seeing here on the screen. Now, what I have here is a soft edge brush, which is what I want. All right, hard edged brushes. Okay, now you can see how that changed. It looked like it grew. Really, the effective size of the brush is the same, but you'll see up here in the left-hand corner, the edges become much harder. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'll just bring the opacity of the painting that I'm going to do to 100%, so it gives you a feel for what happens. But if I put this here and I just click once to paint, it does exactly what I asked it to do. It paints a big black circle in the layer mask, which then reveals everything underneath it with this very hard edge. And that is not the effect that I'm looking for. At first I want to lower the opacity to get a translucent look, but also these edges, when they're very hard like this, it doesn't blend in well with what I want to leave behind. I want to make this look as natural as possible. So everything kind of blends from the parts that I'm revealing to the purely opaque parts of the top. Okay, so let's do this again. I'll take this, I'll throw this layer mask away, and let's start from scratch. This time I'm going to go down here and just click the Add New Layer Mask button. That I find to be a lot easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to soften the edges of the brush, okay? I do that by holding down the Shift button, and if you use your left bracket key, all right, it softens the brush. Right bracket key is going to harden it. So I'm going to soften this as far as it'll go. All right, now if you look in the same spot, if I click, you'll now see that I got a perfectly transparent center, but it feathers out really nicely, okay, and it has a natural kind of blend to it. So that's awesome. Let me undo that, because what I didn't do is lower the opacity. I'm going to bring this down to about 50%. Okay, this allows me on the first pass to give a a fairly consistent, but half of the top, half of the bottom look to it. The key here that I want to stress is to try to make your first pass in one complete pass without lifting up on the mouse button. So because when you're painting at anything other than 100%, the entire pass will exist at that opacity even if you go over it multiple times. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the outside and work in, because I want the feathering on the outside edges. As I move in, it's okay if it gets a little bit more transparent, but it's the outside edges that I want to be translucent. Okay, the nice thing about, again, with layer masks is if I screw up, I can go back. I can either undo or I can paint over, and I'll show you that. All right, so I'm going to start here. I'm just going to click, and now I can hold this down as long as I want and not move it, and it's just going to stay at that level of opacity. And what I'm going to do is pretty much just follow the contours of the guitar where I want to show them, okay? So I'm just going to go on the outside edge and just follow the contour of the guitar for as much as I want to show of it, okay? And then I'll work my way and just do a single pass across the center, and again without releasing, and there we go, okay? And you can see here that it's it's a medium gray, it's a 50% opacity, and that's pretty close to the effect that I want. What I'd kind of like is maybe something a little more transparent in the center, so I can take that, drop it down to about 25%, and then I'll just take it and click once and do a single pass down the strings, okay? And if I want to, do it again. And now what I have is something that's a little more transparent from pickup to pickup down the center, and that's pretty close. What I don't have is over here in the horn, so I'll just use the left bracket key to make that smaller, and then I'm going to paint that in a little bit. All right. Now, the one thing I didn't show you is, okay, well, what do I do if I made a mistake? Well, up here you can see there's a little bit of a line of the outside edge of the case that's revealed from when I painted. What I want to do is I want to be able to hide that line. So I'm simply going to swap the colors that I'm painting with. Instead of painting in black, I'm going to paint in white. I'm going to bring this back up to the 50% opacity that I had. And now here, where I don't want to be able to see anything, I'm going to repaint in black. All right, and I'll probably do a couple passes here because I want this to be pretty close to opaque or entirely opaque. In fact, I could have probably raised it to 100% and been fine. So now there, I got a couple passes there. Maybe I want to hide a little bit more here, hide a little bit of the case lining, and just go over the edge of the guitar. And there I have it. That's pretty close to what I was hoping for when I started this project. I'm real happy with it now. So what I need to do is simply flatten the image, okay? So I can go under here and under layer, I can flatten. And that will merge the two layers together, and now I have the single image. And now I can go ahead and just hit Control-S to save it. And I am right as rain. So there you have it. I hope that helps you with doing your translucent hood shots, whether it be cars or guitars.